Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with New York City jazz saxophonist Russ Nolan. He talked about his newest 2020 CD, Sin Fronteras, which means Without Borders, and he has a stellar lineup around him on this great Latin and modern jazz release. He also opened up about this being released during the beginning of the coronavirus lockdown and how this has affected him and the world at large. We cover some ground. Have a listen.
They have plenty of time to talk to you these days.
Well, that's the thing. You know, there is a lot of time, but, you know, jazz musicians already tend to be rather raw, open individuals. So this time and history has just kind of made it more intensified.
Sure.
I guess my first question to you before we get into the new material is, you know, this is kind of a 9/11 moment, I think, for a lot of people. And I would say early to mid-March. When did you see the beginning of live jazz just go away and the entire landscape evaporate?
I was coming back from San Diego. I had played one of the jazz clubs there the first weekend of March, and we flew back March 10th. At the time, I had subbed out a couple of my regular hotel gigs because I was out of town. And by the time we got back on the 10th, I haven't been in Manhattan since. And my gigs had, we agreed at one of the hotels that I play every Friday that the 14th would be the last Friday, and I said I think that's a very wise decision because we got to put our health and safety before work. That was really it. My other hotel gig had canceled the first. I'd play another hotel the first Wednesday of every month. They had informed me that they were going to be on hold for a couple months, which has turned out to be 3 months now. So that's really what I saw, and I subsequently had to cancel my Midwest tour in April. I was going to play in D.C. the first weekend of May, and then back to the Midwest in June. So I have one date on the calendar still in Toronto, which all their shows are canceled for this month. So I would imagine they're going to also cancel for next month, but we'll see. I don't like to cancel anything, Joe. So it's really where at least I'm living, like I assume many musicians, just on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, and we really don't have control of what is open. We're officially in phase 2 in New York City, which means outside dining, manufacturing businesses, we all get the same news. So that's where we're at. But we're gonna, as far as social activities, which music is, and closed spaces, I imagine we're going to be the last to reopen or last to get going. And then the challenge is, even if we're able to do so, are the venues that have suffered so much like we have financially, are they going to be able to bring music back right away? And that's the big question. That's where we're at, essentially.
Yeah, which is bizarre. All of it's very, very bizarre. But my question to you is, you have material that came out on March 17th, correct?
Yes. I the official release was timed at the release of or the mailing of the July Downbeat magazine issue, because there was a one-page feature on this record by Ted Pankin, who interviewed me in March, right before I took off for San Diego. So it was supposed to be in the June issue, and because of the pandemic, everybody has had to reorganize things, and so it is in this coming month's issue of Downbeat. That was the official release, but I had mailed it out to some radio stations, mostly digital. And I'm already connected with the streaming channels, and hopefully when they get back to their offices, they'll be able to play it too.
It's weird. What's your thought on a pandemic release? I mean, you know, people might have more time to listen to music. Actually, they do have more time to listen to music, but you can't back it up live. Do you have any ambivalence about this release during, you know, that was essentially the height. That was the beginning of everybody realizing everything was coming to a halt.
Well, people are online more than ever. They have more time to be on social media, so I thought it was an ideal time to release it certainly if they wanted to purchase the recording, it's on Bandcamp and it's $7 or more. There is more time to listen to music. There's a reason why we can't, with all the negativity that's going on social media. There's got to be some kind of ray of hope and some positivity, and I don't see why a lot of musicians are getting on and streaming shows and things like that. So we need something that's positive to watch online. So why not release new music for people to listen to and try to heal from all this? That's always been my opinion, is that musicians, even though we're struggling greatly because of this pandemic, like most people, or we'll just say all people, we are the healers of the world. Instead of ranting on politically like most people are doing online, why not just contribute something positive? So I think musicians can play a big role in that. That's my general opinion.
I totally agree. So let's talk about this recording, this new recording, Sin Fronteras.
Sure.
Give me an idea of kind of the artistic approach to this release.
This release came from a couple different sources. One, as I think we talked about before, I've been salsa dancing for about 13 years now, and a lot of my time was spent with arguably the dancing mambo king, not the movie with Banderas and Armin Asante, but the real guy who was dancing in front of Tito Puente for 20 years, and that's Eddie Torres, who's legendary. I started taking lessons with him, and I was dancing at one time about 3 nights a week under his watchful eye. And so I got into Latin jazz actually from dancing, not necessarily from my music education, which was at University of North Texas years and years ago. So with that background, I had continued my studies of percussion with a gentleman who was a percussionist in my salsa band, and we would be trading percussion lessons for composition arranging lessons. And it's through this process that I wasn't planning to become a professional percussionist, but simply to learn how to write Latin music or Latin-influenced jazz better. And so I learned a number of styles. Of course, you can spend a lifetime just learning one style, but just getting enough of a background. And I think Juan Felipe Mayorga, who's the drummer on the record, he said it best that although we weren't playing a lot of the traditional versions of these rhythms or grooves, that we just wanted to learn about them and put our own stamp on it. So it was the dancing, it was the percussion lessons, and then as the Downbeat article just came out, was stated that I had met a number of musicians here in Queens, and there's a club in a near neighborhood called Jackson Heights called Terraza 7, and Juan was the bartender at the time. This is probably going back 6-7 years, and he had keys to the club where there was Latin music there nightly. It wasn't all jazz. It was mostly non-jazz Latin music, and they had a few nights of Latin jazz. So we would go in and rehearse and just have sessions, and over the course of a year, I put together a number of tunes based on different styles of the music, anything from a Spanish bulería to a Peruvian festejo to more of the music that I'm familiar with because I danced, the mambo, son montunos, bossa novas, cha-chas, and the like. We just formed a set of music that we were able to play both at Terraza and a number of other venues in the city, so that eventually we just said, well, we're well rehearsed, why don't we just record this stuff? That's what happened last December. We got it in before the holiday season. Early December is when we recorded, and I decided to release it in March.
Talk to me a little bit about what you hope both the musician and the fans realize when we return to the live music setting. I mean, it's probably going to be a while, but when we do, what silver linings, what revelations do you hope we have?
Excellent question, and I'm thinking about this as well as I'm marketing for my adult jazz student program, which is called Jazz Lab NY. I thought I'd slip that in there because all my students are asking, man, when are we going to come back? I really miss playing. Well, I think in general, my catchphrase now is, if COVID-19 has taught me one thing, is that virtual living isn't much of a life at all. I don't think we're designed as human beings to spend half of our waking hours staring into a computer screen or a phone, even during normal times. And I think if there's any case for live music, it is after this pandemic, that people hopefully will see what is really worth living for, and that's interaction with other people, and with that, of course, comes live music. And I don't think if this doesn't develop a hunger and an appreciation for live music, I don't think anything will, Joe. So I'm optimistic that not everyone, but enough people will say, hey, I really miss live music. I might have taken it for granted before, and we just can't get that through a phone or even a stereo system. We've got to be involved. And the newscasters talk a lot about not only the physical situations with people during this pandemic, but the mental situations. And people just need community, and music certainly provides a great backdrop to be with other people and enjoy art. So I'm sure you're experiencing the same situation with your art as well. You got to have people in a room to appreciate it. And how can we appreciate your art just by looking at a representation online? So it's really the same with music.
I agree. Yeah, and it is. It's a very personable thing. It's doing it, in the flesh, live. So, Russ, hey, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for the new material. It's always great to catch up with you. Stay safe. Good luck with the album. I appreciate it.
Okay, Joe. Well, thanks for taking the time as always, and thanks for all you do. I hope at one point I can get to your neighborhood and actually play a gig, but we shall see.
Thanks for listening and tuning into another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Russ for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.